up, say.
One time for the hometown, I got love for it, it's real. Yeah. 2 times for the haters, man, cause I notice how this shit feel.
Welcome back, guys. This is Matt with the Matt Couturier Report, and we have a couple of special guests in studio today. This here is Miss Frida. She's a French bulldog. She's sort of the ranch magazine dog. It's like a little bowling ball. And then we have our featured guest today. This is my friend Jackson Fee. How's it going, man?
Going good, man. I'm excited for us to interview Frida. She's the real star of the show
exactly,
today.
Dude.
So, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So, it's going to be fun, guys. We're going to talk about some cool stuff. Before we do, though, I'm going to have Jackson do his elevator pitch, but we'll be right back. Just give us a second. We're going to jump to a sponsor. Hang tight. Whether you're looking to buy or sell, Holscher Ranch Group has you covered. With a dedicated team and a passion for Texas land, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Visit HolscherRanchGroup.com or call 325-899-1403 to get started. Holscher Ranch Group, making land ownership dreams come true 1 acre at a time. Hey guys. Pardon the interruption, but if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button to show your support, we'd be very appreciative. Now back to the episode. All right, guys, welcome back. All right, so let's do this. So, do you know what the elevator pitch is?
Oh, 100%. If you went to school for marketing, then you better know your elevator pitch.
That's right, dude.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So tell us who you are, what you do.
Perfect. Yes, sir. Like you said, my name is Jackson Fee. I work for a local brokerage here in San Angelo, Texas, called Spartan Energy. We're actually based out of Houston, Texas, established by a father-son duo. But yeah, man, it's our passion to help local businesses with their energy contracts. You know, it's not something that people want to talk about normally. Contracts aren't fun to talk about, bills aren't fun to talk about, and so it's our goal to make that process as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Super easy. We just take a look at your current bill, make sure that there's not any junk charges, base charges, things that are pretty commonly associated and put on there as junk fees, unnecessary fees. We make sure that your energy contract renewal is completely clean, and then we have a different list of benefits based on how much electricity you use, and that's our passion, just making sure that you're not getting taken advantage of by the big guys, and making sure that you have a fair price moving forward, especially in this economy. You know, we know every cent counts.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Also do tax exemption on nonprofits and churches, so that's a big part of our goal here is making sure that, you know, especially churches and nonprofits, any money that's not going to bills and is being better spent towards something else is money well spent. So that's what we do.
Cool, dude.
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
So tell the audience a little bit about you growing up. You grew up here in San Angelo, right?
Yes, sir. So moved around a little bit. Started off in smaller towns. Originally born in Cotton Center, Texas, which
Where's that at?
North Texas, kind of around the Dallas area. Didn't even have a hospital in that town.
Wow.
So I was actually born in Lubbock, but we were living in Cotton Center at the time. Moved around to small towns based on parents' jobs. So Rankin, Texas. I know that's another small town.
That's where my ranch is in Crane, near Rankin.
Yeah. A lot of oil field, a lot of ranch around there. After that, went to, it was Garden City and then Rankin, and then been here the last 12, 13 years.
Okay.
And so this is what I call home.
Yeah.
I grew up in San Angelo, and I was just excited to move to a town where we had a grocery store and didn't have to drive an hour and a half for groceries and and things like that. So yeah.
How old were you whenever y'all moved to San Angelo?
Oh man, it's probably about 9 years old.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
So you had part of your childhood in like the really small town type.
100%. Yeah.
Rural areas. Yeah.
Back then, like it was such a different atmosphere than it is now. I mean, we literally used to go dumpster diving as kids in small towns because we had nothing else to do.
Yeah, I did that.
So yeah, just like moving to a town where there were actually things to do. I mean, in small town, you had to link up with other schools to even be able to play sports.
That's right. Yeah,
it was about the equivalent to being homeschooled here in San Angelo. So
you were homeschooled, right?
Yes, sir.
In San Angelo.
Yes, sir. Homeschooled.
What
here.
was that like? I feel like a lot of people don't fully understand homeschooling, or also they have like a skewed conception of, a view of what it is.
Definitely.
And one thing that I learned, because the way we met, I owned a gym called Fitness United. and it was a functional training gym where we worked with people, you know, on a more personal level. Right. And I worked with a lot of kids that were actually homeschooled.
Yeah.
And before I did that, though, I didn't necessarily understand it either. I was like, man, like, why would you want to be homeschooled? Like, you don't get to go to prom, and you don't get to interact and do all these things and these social. But I was wrong about that. Yeah. Like, I thought it was a lot different than it was. Like, but in fact, with things like co-op and like different leagues and stuff like that, like your experiences, it's almost better in a lot of ways than traditional school. But tell us about that. Like doing homeschool.
Yeah, it definitely has its advantages and disadvantages. I think a large part of it depends on your parents, right, and how they're going about it. Because I did meet, you know, homeschooled families who they were very sheltered and very isolated to their families, and you know, just kind of did their own thing, own curriculum, didn't have much socialization outside of some of those things. Yeah. But then I met, you know, other families who basically just made it about as close to public school as you could. Like you said, we had the San Angelo co-op where we would come and take classes or extracurriculars and do those with a bunch of other students. Yeah. We had our basketball leagues, and, you know, we weren't just playing other homeschool teams and private Christian teams, but playing public schools and going to these select tournaments and doing pretty well. Yeah. So it definitely depends on your parents and their background. Luckily for me, both my parents were teachers. Yeah. And so, you know, they had the background knowing how to go about teaching a kid and knowing, you know, the different curriculum they wanted to go about and things like that. So that's a large part of it. Yeah. So yeah, I guess just based on your parents and kind of what situation they're in, it's going to largely differ your experience.
That's right.
But yeah, there's lots of opportunity.
What I found interesting was like, so, you know, how they've essentially taken God out of public schools, you know, and, you know, some people think that's a good thing. Some people think it's not such a good thing. Yeah. But what I found really interesting, and it was almost across the board with kids that were homeschooled, and their parents were Christian, and the way they were schooled, God was in the curriculum, you know? I mean, for instance, 100%. Like they would do a class on finances, but it was like biblically driven, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Dave Ramsey. That's a big part of the curriculum.
And what I found with those kids is anywhere from ages like 8, 9 up to like 17, 18, is that homeschooled kids, at least in this area, they were more sure about themselves. They had more confidence. Yeah. They weren't like easily swayed by peer pressure. Right. They were just really confident in who they were already as kids, you know, and could stand up for themselves. Had a strong backbone, you know, they knew what they believed in, and you weren't going to change their belief just because it was the popular thing to do. Totally. So I really respected that, dude. It was like night and day to me, and you were one of those kids, you know. It was just like, it's really inspiring to see that, dude, you know. It says a lot about the parenting and the homeschooling. So I thought that was cool, dude.
100%. I think that's a big part of the culture here in San Angelo is, you know, especially in West Texas, like obviously I know a lot of people would say we're in the Bible Belt and things like that, but through that experience is where I met some of the most loving Christians and had some of the best community. Wow. And I think that's what a lot of kids experience is, you know, they can come somewhere and receive accountability and learn discipline and things like that, but also express themselves and, you know, learn new things. And yeah, man, I don't regret my experience at all. I'd say the only limit, especially here in San Angelo, is we didn't have a football team because we didn't have enough kids for that. So but we had basketball and track, but as far as football, I didn't have anything like that.
Yeah, because you would have played, huh?
Football. 100%.
That would have been cool.
Grew up in a super competitive family, so any sport opportunity, we wanted to take advantage of. Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. So what about college? Are you going to college right now? Or
actually, finished college this last year. Yes, sir. In 2021.
Congrats. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
What did you get your degree in?
Marketing.
Cool.
Yes, sir. Marketing degree.
Okay. I didn't even know that.
Yes, sir.
I love that, dude. From ASU?
Awesome. Yes, sir. From ASU. Ended up doing a lot of my prerequisites at Howard for my senior year. Yeah. So I only had to spend 3 years at ASU and got it done. And wow. I know college nowadays is a little bit more of a controversial topic on whether people think it's worth it or not.
Do you think it's a scam, or do you think it was worth it?
Dude, I think my opinion is ever changing right now, because used to I would have been like, you know, it's necessary. Right. And I think if you go about it the right way, it's super beneficial. I think the socialization, the different people you meet, I think those are all super beneficial things. But I've learned so much more about the business world and about how to go about business through being in the job, by doing my current job, by previous jobs. You just learn so much more actually being in the field and doing things. Yeah. I mean, that's the best preparation is actually going and doing.
That's right, dude. Yeah.
I see both sides of the argument.
I do too. Yeah.
I personally wish. I mean, I don't regret going to college, but I do wish I would have done some things different, been more involved with different clubs.
Yeah, me too.
And things like that.
That's interesting, dude. So like, I kind of feel the same way. So do you know who Charlie Kirk is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that guy, and he didn't go to college, and he's a big proponent of college is a scam or whatever.
Right.
And you know how he goes to different college campuses and he interviews kids or whatever. And, challenges them. Well, I saw this one clip the other day, and it was this kid, and he got up to the mic and he said, "Charlie, I understand that you feel like college is a scam." And he said, "Yeah, 100% it's a scam." He said, "In fact, half of you in this audience will not get a job for what your degree was in if you get a job at all." And he goes, "Well, can you tell me how to do a differential equation?" And he goes, "No." And he goes, "Can you tell me the anatomy of the human body?" And he was like, "Well, what?" And he was like, "Well, can you explain philosophy to me?" And basically he was explaining that there is a purpose for college. There's something to be said about a man or a woman being educated. Yeah. 100%. And that's kind of what my dad told me whenever I was going to college, is that one of the biggest takeaways from a college experience is to be just literally to be educated on some of the things I just mentioned. Right. And the other thing I feel like college is good for is it teaches you how to think critically, which I don't think you get that a lot, even in the workforce, Yeah. No, and the other thing is it teaches you how to start something and finish something if you got your degree. You know? So I think there are definitely benefits to it. I think the way that it's set up, like within the U.S. society, is kind of scamish in a way, how expensive it is.
100%.
Just the way it's set up with tuition and fees and semesters and so I see both sides too, for sure. But are you glad overall that you went to college and got a degree?
Yeah, I would say so, because kind of like you said, I'm not somebody who is very detail oriented. I like to move a lot more sporadically, a lot more free-willed, and so those were skills that I needed to work on, was being detail oriented, having a schedule, having different deadlines that I had to meet, and so that was something that really did help me. Yes, as far as the whole college experience, and so I don't regret it. I met some of my best friends in the world through my college experience, and I don't regret that in any way. Like I said, if I had any critique, and obviously this goes to way more systemic kind of things in the US, but like you said, tuition and things like that, obviously in a perfect world we wouldn't have to pay so much in order to become educated and to become disciplined.
Agreed.
And so I'd say that's my only like real critique of the entire system. Yeah.
You mentioned something though too, the social aspect of it. That's important too.
Definitely.
That's something you get from college that you don't get if you just go straight to the workforce.
Oh yeah.
But I do feel like like Elon Musk is a big proponent of this, about how like getting a higher education is important, but why not a more practical higher education instead of like a liberal arts degree or something like focus more on the trades, and things that are going to be real practical right out of school. Like a lot of people believe they're the thought that like, go to college if you're going to pursue something like in mathematics or engineering, something that's real practical that you're going to get a job for in that field, as opposed to like a philosophy degree or something.
Right. Something not super guaranteed after. Yeah. Totally get that.
And so, but what do you want to do? Like, what is your ultimate goal? Like with the marketing degree, is that something you want to do? Like, with your career, like get into more?
Oh man. That's a good question. I think there's not like a set answer to that question for me 100%. I mean, I would love to, I've always talked to my wife about, I would love to own a Christian clothing brand, just something that I feel cool. I feel like as far as Christian clothing goes, a lot of it can be a little on the nose. And I think one of the biggest things in the Bible is that Jesus spoke in parables, and the Bible's a lot about parables and poetry, some things that aren't super on the nose and take a little bit of thought to get to. And so making art, making clothing that kind of represents that, I think would be super cool.
That's a good
so something
idea.
like that in the future would be a super cool opportunity. However that works out.
I like that, dude.
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's a cool idea. Yeah. So you mentioned your wife. So you're 22 or 23?
22.
22, dude.
Yes, sir.
So when did you get married?
Literally 6 months ago. I mean, we were fresh in a marriage, June 10th.
Yeah. Well, so tell me first about how you and your wife met.
Yeah.
How long y'all were together and how it kind of ended up. The way it is,
Yeah. We knew each other about or we had first met 10 years ago at a church camp.
Yeah.
It was kind of a situation where I was at a different church than she was. and had gotten to know her through some mutual friends. And later down the road, she was homeschooled before I was. And so we actually met through the homeschooled co-op.
Cool.
So it's funny that we go back to that, because without that, I wouldn't have my wife. So very, very appreciative for that. But yeah, I didn't ask her out for the longest time because I honestly thought I had no chance. I thought she was the most absolute stunning, beautiful girl.
Yeah.
And literally did not think I had a chance.
Yeah.
So had talked to some of her friends in the process, which probably was not the best idea, and vice versa, because ended up finding out down the line that she had thought the same thing. Like she
really,
she had thought I was the real deal, and I was like, wow, that's what a mix up we've got going on here. And so just through different things in college, had ended up hanging out more, and we had just both gotten out of relationships and started hanging out a lot. And I literally remember the moment we kind of both realized there was a connection there. Was we'd been hanging out and talking a lot as friends, and then we were on a FaceTime, and she had just said something about, it's how crazy that people are assuming we're dating. Like, they know we both just got out of relationships, and, like it wouldn't be good timing at all. And I'd kind of snuck in a comment. I was like, oh yeah, like that's definitely super wild, but maybe someday. And she was like, oh yeah, for sure. And then she said at that moment, like, that's when she realized like, hey, this is something that could definitely work out. And eventually got the courage to ask her out, and dated for a year, and I was like, yeah, this is my person. Like, this is what I want to do life with. So yeah, 100%.
Wow.
I mean, I had known her for 10 years, and so it wasn't really like I was dating to figure out who she was.
Right. I
was more so dating to figure out, okay, like, how does she respond during conflict? How does she treat me in times of hardship? And do we line up on some of these same things as far as like our beliefs, politics, things like that. And just down the road, I was like, you know what, this is it. Like, this is 100% what I want to do. And it's been a huge blessing ever since.
Dude, so that's very wise for someone your age, because like, even from my own experience, I was not that wise about dating until much later on. And I think that goes back to kind of how you were raised, dude. I really do. But like, so what I did, and a lot of people that I know, is like, we would date these different girls, and like, let's say the top 5 things that are non-negotiables, right? That are values that you're not negotiating on. Like, let's say number 1, that they have to have a shared faith in God. Number 2, they have to be good at conflict management. Number 3, have to put family at the top. Those kind of things. Things that you're not going to negotiate on. Well, so for me, I was always driven by how they look. And how can we get along? Do we laugh together? Or do we mesh? And that was way more important to me. And I think a lot of people, especially that I know, guys that I know, we went into relationships like that. We're like, those top 5 boxes that need to be checked, we didn't even care. We're like, whatever, we'll figure it out down the line. And then what happens was, after the lust phase and all that starts to fade, and you get into some real stuff, and you realize that those things don't match up, you run into some real problems.
100%.
And it took me a while to figure out. Finally, it was a friend of mine. Her name was Betty, and she was a client at the gym. And she said, Matt, look, if you're serious about this and you're not just playing around, like if you're really looking for someone, she said, those top 5 things have to be non-negotiable. And as soon as you start dating, if they don't check all 5, you have to be done immediately. And I was like, what? And she said this, I'll never forget it. She said, because no matter who the person is, if you're dating them, you can find something to fall in love with them over. And I was like, damn, that's so true. And so that's when I started realizing, like, okay, like, she's right. Like, I have to treat it like that, like a system almost. Like, if they don't check these 5 boxes, I'm not even wasting time. So that's cool that you already knew that. Like, that you knew that those important things had to be checked. And they were for you, right? Y'all matched up on those. Was there anything that y'all didn't really match up on that was really important to you?
I'd say we definitely had different family dynamics growing up. I mean, like, getting in marriage, you find out different things, you do things. And so as far as anything major, I don't think there was anything there. I think the biggest thing was I have a desire to move. I want to go. I want to see. I always tell people, I like that. I want to live somewhere where I'm excited to go outside. I want to live somewhere where, I'm excited to take my kids out and hike and fish and do things like that. And I've moved, like 12 times just in San Angelo, probably 14 to 15 times overall. And so I'm super adapted to change, super used to it. She, on the other hand, has lived in her same house her entire life.
Okay.
Literally moved out for her college dorm.
Yeah.
And then had a rental house after that, and then moved in with me. And that has been like
I see. Yeah.
her experience. And so as far as change, we definitely approach that differently.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think the more we've spent time together and have had different experiences, I think she started to adopt that of like, I do want to go. I do want to see. I think there is more out there than San Angelo, Texas, and things like that. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Okay.
As far as
that's cool.
Yeah.
But that's something that's not like, a games, where it's like, if we don't match up on this, we're not going to work out. Like
100%.
That's cool. Yeah. But I like that you're like that, dude, that you want to go and experience and move. And I love that, dude. I always talked about, like, if I could, I would move to like a different state and spend almost like the military. I'd spend 2 years there and then go somewhere else and spend just to experience as much as possible. Dude,
there's so much beauty out there, dude. Like we didn't grow up much traveling just because we were on a youth pastor salary. Yeah. And so we, vacations for us back then were, going to a local state park or going, in a rented camper or something like that. Yeah. And, we learned to value and love those things so much. And so now that we've gotten a little bit older and have been able to do a little bit more and see a little bit more, I'm just like, man, there is so much out there, like Utah and Colorado. Just
where would you want to go first?
Oh man, first, like, if I could pick my absolute like dream vacation, unlimited budget, I 100% would go to the Swiss Alps. Like that would be the absolute best location in my mind.
Why? How come?
Just because I love skiing and I love taking my people to ski. And so if we found a way that we could all go and do that kind of thing, just experience the town, experience a different culture, I would be so in love with that. Dude, yeah. So yeah. What about you? What would your
dude? I dream think scenario so. Be? I've been to Europe a few times, Germany and the Netherlands. But for some reason, like, I really want to experience Japan. I don't know why.
Japan would be awesome.
Yeah, I just think it would be such a different culture.
100%,
it would just be so unique, and I think I'd really enjoy it. Yeah. But also, my dad's wife is she's from Great Britain, but she lived in New Zealand for a really long time.
Super cool.
And she came over to the States just a few years ago, and she talks about it all the time, and I see pictures, and it just, I would love to go to New Zealand, dude.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. Whenever me and my wife were on our honeymoon, we went to Jamaica, which
I've been there.
By the way, super cool place. Anybody who gets the opportunity should 100% go to Jamaica.
Agreed.
But while we were there, we had met another older couple who was just, they weren't even celebrating anything in particular, but she, the wife was a travel agent. Yeah. And so she just finds different deals and is like, hey, suit up, let's go. Yeah. And that's kind of where, we took some inspiration from. Is she talked about how she actually moved to Australia at first and, just wanted to get away from the United States and experience different culture and things like that. Moved to New Zealand and absolutely loved it. She's a big surfer and was like, that is the place to be. And
dude.
And just seeing her and being like, man, you really can just like go anywhere. I think especially when you grow up in a small town like Rankin or somewhere like that, your concept of the earth is so small.
I know.
And then you meet people like that and you're like, holy cow, there's so much more out there. And you can just go and do it.
Right, like, dude.
There's nothing holding you back.
Yeah. So that's the thing I feel like when you grow up in a smaller town like that, you also have this it's like a false conception that I can't do that. It's too far out of out of range. Like, it's too expensive, or I'm not able to do that. Right. And I think you're right. Like, people 100%. Don't understand how doable it is. Right. Yeah. So that's one of those things where you just have to do it, man. And the more you do it, the more you realize, okay, this is doable. Like, I can do this. So that's cool, man. So what about your marriage? Was it a big wedding or not really?
I guess it kind of depends what you think of as big. We
had 200 people, 300 people?
Actually less than 200. Okay. So we ended up around, I would say, 130.
Yeah, okay.
Just a lot of super close friends and family. Yeah. We had talked about different options. We had talked about doing a destination wedding or getting eloped, but that ended up being a non-negotiable for my wife. Is like, hey, I want my family to be able to be there. I want my extended family to be able to be there. I just want anybody who wants to come and celebrate us to come. And so we ended up doing doing a wedding in Abilene, and just beautiful venue. And best day of my life by far. Just having everybody there and celebrating. I mean, there's nothing really like it, to be honest.
So, dude, that's cool. Yeah. When was that? When did y'all get married? Like a year ago?
June 10th, so 6 months ago.
Oh, wow. And then y'all went straight to Jamaica?
Yes, sir. Straight after.
Cool. Yep. For how long?
We were there for probably about 6 days.
Nice. What was like the most enjoyable thing y'all did there?
Oh man, we had never been scuba diving before.
Oh yeah.
And that is like one of the coolest experiences I've ever done in my life. Just
cool.
Being that far under and looking up and realizing like how far under the water you are is just such a cool experience.
It is.
And so we're hoping to go back and get certified so we can do even longer dives, deeper dives.
Yes.
But that was golly, like one of the coolest things I've ever experienced.
I got NAUI certified when I was at Texas State.
Really?
Yeah, I did a semester of that. But what was interesting, like one of the things you have to be able to do is equalize.
Yeah. Big deal.
Yeah, and so holding your nose and blowing out so your ears will equalize. And
right.
I couldn't do it, man. Like we'd go down and I would try to do it and I couldn't do it.
Right.
And finally the instructor was like, look, if you're not able to do it, like I can't pass you.
Yeah.
So I got to meet him on a Saturday, just me and him in a pool to work on it.
Yeah.
And it turned out what I was doing was I wasn't pinching my nose firm enough. Like there was still some air getting in. So I finally figured out how to do it. And then there are several things you have to be able to do while you're underwater to be able to pass. And but I'll never forget like the experience, like you're saying, of being underwater and like looking up and realizing you're breathing underwader.
It is,
but it's a little scary too.
Yeah.
It really is a little freaky. But you want to get certified or what?
Would love to. I mean, I that's some of the prettiest water I've been in, but I know there's better places to go, cooler things, like there's shipwrecks and things like that. I mean, that is just it's such a privilege to be able to do.
Would you ever do like with sharks, like swimming with sharks?
Oh, 100%.
You would?
Oh yeah, definitely. I have swam with sharks in Belize, but I mean, they were nurse sharks, and so nurse sharks are super harmless.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, okay, not that I want to be around something that's harmful,
but would you like dive with great whites?
Oh my goodness, maybe with a cage or something like that. I don't know about just
or tiger sharks.
Free diving with some great whites. I see people who do that, and they're like, and I understand that there probably is a narrative that sharks aren't as bad as media makes them out to be.
Yeah,
but also I don't want to find out.
I know.
You know what I'm saying? Like I will leave that to the experts who treat them as pets.
Seriously, yeah.
You ever see the videos where they just like put them on their nose and they'll like guide them out the other way? No,
I know, it's crazy.
Leave that to the professionals.
Yeah. I don't know if I would do that either. I got to swim with stingrays. That was cool. In the Cayman Islands. That was
a cool experience.
Yeah.
You started thinking about oh man, what's that guy's name that passed away?
Oh yeah,
Irwin.
Steve Irwin. Yeah.
Yeah. You started thinking about that, and you're like, oh crap.
I know. Like think about that guy. Like the most trained professional, and anything can happen.
Oh yeah.
At any moment,
Yeah, and they say that was such like the fact that happened was such a rarity. You know, like I don't even remember the odds, but the odds of that happening were super low, and so it just goes to show like how fragile life is and how you can never really predict what's going to happen in those situations.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, dude. So what about like you started working for Spartan Energy like 5 or 6 months ago?
Yeah.
So tell us just a little bit more about that, because I'll tell you my experience with it.
Yeah.
It was a good experience. Good. So when I owned the gym, I had a representative come in and I was like, man, I don't have time for this, whatever, you know, blowing him off. And he was like, well, what are you paying currently for your electricity? And I was like, man, anyway, and he explained to me that what they did was a little different.
Yeah.
And so I think this is right, but what they do is they basically shop it around and find you the best rate, right? Yeah. And so when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's different.
Right.
So I said, all right, well, let's try it out. And so he shopped it around and he found me a rate that was way better.
Right.
And so that's basically what y'all do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think a lot of people go into it with that mindset, right? Like kind of what I was saying earlier. Nobody wants a random stranger to come in and talk to them about their energy because it's the last thing on your mind. Like if you've already signed a contract, you don't want to talk about it. And I get that 100%. But yeah, just the way we do things different. Most business owners will, call a couple different energy providers, kind of negotiate, see what kind of rate they can get. And on average, energy companies are pretty intelligent in how they'll go about that. They'll start off at a pretty decently high rate and then just, maybe lower you a little bit to where you feel like you've gotten a good deal, right?
Yeah.
Like a good price is always in the eye of the beholder. And so they're going to try to get away with as much as they can. But as far as what we do, like you said, we take your energy bill. We'll take a look at how much you're using as far as electricity, shop it with all the different companies and, see what the best deal is for the time. And then we just have different protections for different companies. Like, people who use a lot of electricity. A big concern right now is, I don't want to sign a contract because, if Donald Trump comes in office and lowers rates, then I don't want to be stuck in something super high.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, we have what's called an adjusted price drop. where we'll actually lower your rate during your contract because we don't want you to feel stuck, right? And we want to reward you for your loyalty. And then for smaller companies who don't use as much electricity, their benefit is literally just a $250 termination fee, which is cheapest on the market. Every other electric company will do 3 times your most recent bill. And then something else we've noticed with a lot of energy companies is they'll include a lot of different junk fees and things like base charges, ancillary fees, line loss, things like that. And what we found is a lot of energy companies and a lot of brokers will give you a super good rate, something that looks really good. But once you start to add up all these different termination fees and things like that, it can, we had a lady who was at a 2-cent rate, literally a phenomenal rate. Amazing. But then after adding up all her fees and everything, we actually found out she was actually more at about an 8-cent rate. And so they're very crafty, and that's our thing is we want to be honest, we want to be open, and just help you however we can. Completely free service.
That's cool.
So it's our goal to help local businesses. That's a big part.
Dude, I like that. The other thing I like about it a lot, and the reason I chose to go with Spartan and have them help me was that you get a local representative. Like literally if a business signs up with you, you're going to be handling it, right? Me personally, my phone number. That's a big deal. We because I mean our systems are obviously getting way more automated, a lot more AI, and you're dealing with a lot of overseas representatives, people you can't understand, or people whose service is bad, you can't really hear them, or you have to go through a phone line, an automated system of, clicking 6 different numbers, and finally you get to speak to a real person. And our thing is like, you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to go through all this work just to be able to having my guy, I can call my guy who's local.
100%. Exactly. Cool. So that's a big deal to us is, we want to make sure that your experience is as seamless as possible. And so we've got a client relations team. We've got, like you said, your local agent, and just making that process as simple as possible. Dude. So,
that's cool, man. I like that. So, are you Generation Z? What's your generation?
Man. I believe I am Generation Z.
Did you grow up getting participation trophies? Be honest. Did you ever?
Yeah,
you did.
There were definitely participation trophies in there.
Yeah.
Which
what'd you think about that?
I've never been a big fan. I'm a super competitive person, and so
I like that.
I want to earn. I want to earn my trophies. I want to earn what I've done. And I don't. Because, like, if a family member comes in or a friend comes in and they see my list of accomplishments or whatever, it looks great. It's a bunch of medals, but then you start looking at it's participation. And I just, I'm so prideful in that way that I want to be able to say I've done something like that. I was the best at something. So, unfortunately, I did grow up in the age of participation trophies and things like that. And I definitely think there's probably a place for that. But also, I think it's important for kids to understand that, like, hey, sometimes you do have to work hard to earn something.
That's right, dude.
The benefit that you got out of that wasn't a participation trophy, but just the experience, the discipline, the determination. That's the reward you get out of it.
So, what sports did you grow up playing? You played basketball, track. Did you play baseball?
Played baseball for a while. My dad was actually a D2 collegiate athlete for baseball.
I didn't know that.
Played at Wayland Baptist, and so baseball was huge in our household. That was another one. Unfortunately, we lost to homeschooling. We didn't have a baseball team, so I couldn't do that. But I grew up playing basketball, baseball, football. Hated track, hated running, so didn't really do much of those. I hated running without a ball or a purpose or anything like that. I was like, this is cardio. Like, this is punishment for your sport, and so I didn't really do much like that. But every other sport I could play, got my hands on. So.
What do you think, like, if you compared your generation to, let's say, my generation or even like baby boomers, what's something that you feel like you have an advantage in being a Generation Z? Like, what's something you have an advantage in that other generations don't?
For one, I think for better or for worse, we're way more connected than any other generation. I mean, anything is one Google search away, one call away. And so, you want to go be a business owner. Well, you can look up 20 YouTube videos, 20 articles. You can talk to business owners. Those are things that are super, super accessible to you. So I'd say that's a big one. It's just the interconnection that we're able to have as technology is advanced. That's a huge part. And I think this generation, again, for better or for worse, is a lot more adept about talking about emotions, their feelings, and things like that.
Good point, man.
Whereas I think with baby boomers, that may have not been as much the case. Now, I'll say I feel like we've probably pendulum swung too far.
Okay.
To where I think emotions and things are taken a little bit too much into consideration.
Okay.
But I think the reverse side of that, again, baby boomers, is you've got people who aren't able to talk about their feelings and aren't able to come out about things. And I think that there's a healthy middle ground there where, hey, emotions are valid, feelings are valid, and those, definitely can be heard and shared. But also at the same time, like at the end of the day, you've got responsibilities to take care of, regardless of your emotions. And so, I'd say that's a big pendulum swing is, we're able to be open about mental health, about different struggles, anxiety, depression, things like that. So
man, that's really good. That's true. Dang, that's good. Yeah. So like you said, both is y'all are very resourceful. Like you grew up with the device in your hand.
Oh yeah. I mean, iPad kids is a real thing. I mean, that is, I mean, you walk into any restaurant, kid with a phone, kid with an iPad, anything. That is a very normal thing.
If you, like you said, if you're going to be a business owner or whatever you're interested, like you're going to figure out how to do it. Like you're going to, how to do that. Like you have, you can access resources via YouTube or whatever and figure out how to do it. Yeah. Whereas like people in my generation or older, they understand that they can probably learn some stuff on YouTube, but I just don't feel like they're as resourceful. Like they might try a few videos and get frustrated and say, well, there's got to be a different way, Whereas you guys, you know that there's an answer and you're going to find it, which I respect. Yeah. And then also, like you said, and it's funny because like you see like baby boomers and then my generation, which is like millennials. And then I think there's one more like X or something, and then Z.
There's so many. They're all over the place.
I know, but you see it like baby boomers are the least open, and talk about their emotions and willing to like do counseling and that kind of deal.
Yeah, you're right.
And then millennials are a little better. X is a little better, and Z's really good at it. But like you said, maybe it's swung a little too far, whereas it gets into a little too much into your emotions, get offended a little too easily, that kind of deal. But what do you say to people like that who maybe are in your generation or the one above you who are really way too emotional and they get offended very easily? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, man, I think at the end of the day, like I said, you are completely valid in your emotions and your feelings. Those aren't things you can control, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think anybody's going to choose to have anxiety or choose to have depression or choose these different things. But at the same time, you can choose how you respond to those things. And I think this actually goes into a more in-depth conversation about fitness and about lifestyle and things like that. There's a bigger conversation there of different mental health that's affected by your activity level and by how you go about things. Because I think a lot of people who struggle with mental health and struggle with these different things can often find themselves in super just like not healthy lifestyle habits as far as getting enough sleep, getting the right nutrients and these different things. And obviously that doesn't, I don't know a percentage that makes up, but I think a lot of people will find themselves in that percentage of if you were to change around to different things, like you could find yourself in a lot healthier position.
Yeah, I agree with that big time.
Yeah. And then I think again another aspect to that is faith. I mean, I remember a huge conversation after my dad passed away in 2018 was different people asking how you go about that, how you go about grief, how you go about your different emotions and feelings and waking up and continuing to go out and do. And I think mine and my family's faith in Jesus was a huge part of that, because without that background and without that foundation, like I would have been lost, and I would have been super emotional, and I would have had no direction to do with anything. But because of my faith, I was able to lean on the fact that I know my dad's in Jesus' arms, and at the end of the day, what else could I hope for? That was his life's goal, and so I've come to understand, like, hey, I don't desire for him to be here. I desire for myself to be there.
Wow, yeah.
And so I think that's a huge role that plays into this current generation's emotions and things.
I do too, man. That's good. Yeah, I just have to say, man, whenever your dad passed, and it was hard because it was so unexpected. Yeah. Was it an aneurysm or?
Not an aneurysm. Just to kind of go into the story about how that happened. Yeah. It was the day after the Super Bowl. It was February 5th, 2018, and we had worked out that morning as a family. Like I said, we're all super active, super competitive. So it was a normal part. Had come home for dinner, and my dad had kind of been not super normal the last couple of days, just super lethargic and not really being his normal self. Because again, super competitive guy, super passionate
very
guy.
Active, and
he wasn't yelling at the TV for the Super Bowl. So we were like, what on earth is happening? But didn't think much of it. And I remember we were eating dinner with my family, and my dad told my mom, he was like, hey, I'm going to step away and take a shower, just to try and hopefully feel better. And I remember he walked off, and me and my mom were finishing dinner, and she had followed him into the room because she never heard the shower turn on, and had screamed my name and told me to grab my phone and dial 911. And whenever I walked in, my dad was sitting there laying on the ground and just didn't know it at the time, but he had gone through a heart attack, and apparently had been going through a heart attack the last like 48 hours. And and so called 911, couldn't even get the words out because, I mean, as a 15-year-old kid, you don't really know what you're seeing. You know,
that's right.
Whenever you're your hero, like as a kid, you think your dad's Superman, right?
Absolutely.
Like you think he's indestructible, and so to see your superhero in such a vulnerable position, you're like, I don't even know how to, like, I can't even process this.
I know it. Yeah.
And so mom finally grabbed the phone from me, called 911, ended up coming, and had rushed him to the hospital. And I remember we were all kind of waiting there as friends and family showed up, just waiting on an answer and trying to figure out what happened. And I remember the moment we had figured out what happened. The doctor had walked out, and right behind him had followed a priest. And so from that moment, you know exactly what happened. And I remember he had knelt down and told my mom that he had passed away. And again, it was just super out of nowhere. I mean, he was 39 years old, had never drank, had never smoked, didn't have any of those. Yeah.
Whoa,
never drank, never smoked, nothing
I know,
like that.
so healthy.
Yeah. And I mean, he I'm not going to claim that he was the healthiest dude in the world. I mean, he had a dad bod. He was doing his thing, right?
Yeah, but he was
food.
active and didn't do, like you said, he didn't smoke, didn't drink. Yeah,
exactly. Had been a coach in the past. And so we were always playing basketball or working out or things like that. And so it just really shocked us and came out of nowhere. And, again,
it was, dude. It was was one of those things that like sent shock waves throughout the community. It really did. Yeah. And, it was really, man, I got to tell you, like the way you handled it, because I got to be around you during that time, and I was just and I still am very impressed by that, dude, and inspired, and just how you and your family like leaned on each other and on your faith. It was, to me, like one of the coolest examples of how you should deal with grief. Yeah. And I learned a lot from that, dude.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was cool.
I have the opportunity now. I mean, I think one of the biggest things you experience in that is the why. I think more so than being angry at God or being frustrated or anything like that, was more so just a why. Because I'd always grown up believing, God has a plan for everything. Even though it wasn't like God taking away my dad at a young age, like he would be able to make good out of it. And so it was just that question of like, God, like what good is supposed to come out of this? I mean, he was a youth pastor. He had homeless ministry. He had youth kids that were dependent on him. And so it was like, what could possibly be the greater outcome of this? Yeah. And from that, I've got to experience it in my own personal story, just with people who have loved ones pass away. And, I had somebody come to me not long after that and was like, they texted me out of nowhere. It was like, how did you do it? Wow. And I was like, what do you mean? And they said, my fiance just passed away in a freak accident. Apparently, his wheels had fallen off his truck as he was driving. Oh, wow. Died in a car crash. And she asked me, she was like, how did you do it? Yeah. And I think that's become such a part of my testimony is it's only because of God that I'm going to be able to experience any good out of this, right? Yeah. Because in every other way, it sucks, right? Like, I won't be able to cherish those moments. He wasn't at my graduation. He wasn't at my wedding. Right. And, if there is no God, if there is no Jesus, if there is no salvation or life after, then it is what it is, and I just have to deal with it. Yeah. But because of who God is and because of the salvation that I know my dad had, like I get the opportunity to know that he's in Jesus' arms. And, I think that's how you have to look at it, because it's true. You know, I think that's the main thing you have to lean on. Yeah. And so I've been able to just do different ministry opportunities through that, and that's been, I mean, that is one of the answers to why. Yeah, I think that's cool. I think I won't ever know fully why, because I'm not God, but I think that is one of the reasons why. Just doing things like that. That's good, man. I love that. So what? Tell me what you're grateful for right now in your life. What are three things that you're grateful for right now? I mean, obviously, first is my wife. I mean, without her, I'd run around like a chicken with my head cut off. I'm so free-willed and so sporadic. And she's so much more orderly. Oh, she kind of grounds you. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I remember the way that my parents always had done the analogy for their relationship was my dad was like a balloon and she was the one holding on to the string. Yeah. That's exactly how I feel. Like, dude. She keeps me grounded 100%. So first and foremost, her. Next would definitely have to say my family. I mean, I grew up in a super loving home. Like I said, I'm able to have the background and the different ideologies and beliefs that I do because of my family.
That's right.
So just a huge part. And last, I'd say my friends. Like, I think that is such an important part of life, is having the right group around you. Because I have friends who, not only like enjoy the same things as I do, but they also come on the other side and challenge my beliefs and hold me accountable. And I think having both of those things is super important.
That's right.
So, super thankful for them.
That's good. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And then what makes you the most happy? What brings you the most joy in life?
Oh man, I would say community.
Cool.
I know I said that my wedding day was the best day of my life. I would probably actually change that to my engagement.
Why?
Because the way we got to set it up, I actually had a very generous friend of my stepfather who allowed us to use her lake house for me to do it, and ended up proposing. And then for the weekend, just got to enjoy the lake house with my parents, my family, and those friends.
Cool.
And so just having all that community in the same place was like the best thing ever. And so I'd say that's
that's awesome.
What majority of my happiness comes from.
I like that, dude.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yes, sir.
So, all right, lastly, how do people, if they want to talk about their energy bill and stuff like that, like how do they get a hold of you? What do they do?
Yeah, definitely. I have like I said, it's my personal telephone, so anybody can reach out. And all it takes is literally just a picture of your energy bill, whether that be email, text, anything like that. I can come by.
Nice.
My phone number, just for reference, would be 325-812-6570.
Perfect.
And email is Jackson, JACKSON, @SpartanEnergyCo.com.
Okay, I'll put that on the bottom.
Perfect. Yeah, like I said, free analysis. It doesn't cost you all a thing, just to be able to see what we can do. And a lot of business owners do find themselves where they think they're in a good position, and then we come by and find out that they're not. Like you said, like you didn't want to talk about it, then ended up finding out we could, save you even more. And I think a lot of people find themselves in that same position.
For sure, dude.
So,
yeah. Well, dude, thank you so much, Jackson.
Thank you, man.
Awesome, man.
Yes, sir. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, dude.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys, this was Jackson Fee. I'm Matt. This was the Matt Contreras Report. Thank you guys for joining us. Remember, if you want to sponsor the Matt Contreras Report podcast, please let us know. We'd love to have your business sponsor the show. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you next time.
Perfect. I appreciate you, man.
Man, that was so good, dude.
Yes, sir. That's fun.